I followed, as the police said, I followed every rule that I was supposed to do.
Okay.
It was a very private letter only to her.
Okay.
It was not to anyone. It was just as other words given to me to give to other people. It's private. It's a personal word. With her, we had some disagreements. And then all of a sudden, I get the word, I'm to love her and to be there for her. And it's like, we don't look at life at all. Doesn't matter.
The same way you're saying, yeah.
Yes, it doesn't matter. Meet her where she's at. And then I had a vision, and it was the most vivid vision that I'd ever been given. And that vision was so scared me, and it was so real. I immediately called the police because I felt she was in danger, extreme danger.
It sounds like she's taken it as that was a threat from you to her life.
There's no easy way out. I just wanna know there's no easy way out. No easy way out. I'm not asking for another chance.
Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of the No Easy Way Out podcast. My name is Tony Nash, and we are coming to you, as always, from the Woodworth Building in beautiful downtown Owosso, home to my company, AZ Business Solutions, where we help grow your brand from A to Z. Well, I'm joined today by a very, how do we want to say, very unique individual, a one-of-a-kind guy, a man that is comfortable in his own skin, a man that everybody in our community knows, and that is the one, the only, Tom Manke. Tom, welcome to the show, man.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here.
Yeah, it's good to have you. We've known each other
Thank
for
you.
quite a few years. We go back all the way to the time when I ran the Comstock. That was kind of my first interactions with Mr. Manke. And
A few years.
used to give me a real hard time down there as the manager of the Comstock. At that time, you were running the Serene Bean, and you were working heavily with the homeless population. And so we got a lot of requests for people to stay overnight at the hotel. And so there were some issues with the hotel not being accommodating, and that you felt that they should be. And so I remember you giving me a hard time about that a few times, and it really wasn't my decision. It was more of the owners. But what was the big issue there that you guys were having?
Homeless, people's welfare has always been something that's, I can't help it. I think I've just been programmed that way all my life. I'm ordained, and I really upset religious people, religious leaders, when I tell them that I'd rather be out sitting alongside of a gutter with a street person than to be with them in their church. My beliefs, Matthew 25:31 on up through, states what we're required to do. And Jesus didn't say, I request this. He said, this is what you're going to do if you want to come with me. And it is, take care of the least of these, to make sure people have food, make sure people have medicine, make sure that people are taken care of. Their immediate needs. It doesn't mean we need to buy them a new car, doesn't mean, but it means that if we have a church, that we're to open those doors and give somebody a place to sleep for the night. So we did that at the Bean, but we were all volunteer at the Bean. We did that for 5 years. We fed people for free. We were a church, so we put people in our back garage. because Michigan law is very, very clear. Church can do sanctuary. Now, the city doesn't like homeless shelters. They don't want homeless shelters. In fact, this is the first time in Owosso's history that homeless are kicked out when daylight is out, dusk to dawn.
So when you say the city doesn't like homeless shelters, what do you mean by that? Like, they don't
Well,
like
we're
one to
lucky.
exist? They
Well-
don't want one to exist, or they don't want to fund one?
No, they don't want them here. They just don't want them. When Homeless Angels opened up, there was a big controversy on how they weren't going to let them because they were a shelter, and they said, "No, we're a hotel."
I did,
So if
I
you're-
did notice that on the sign.
So if you're a hotel, there's not much they can say. So, and if you're a church, and at this time, just to let you know, at this time we just had the count. 32 homeless are out on the street. Now, we have the hotel, the homeless hotel, which is,
How many does that house?
pardon me,
How many can that house?
I'm not sure because they're a different thing. They can't take your typical homeless off the street. They cater to families. So they cater to women with children, which we have. So because of that, they can't, your typical homeless mental patient, whatever, alcoholic, drug abuser, or we have people out there. This is a good one. We have people out there that live on the street. They're just like you and I, except their brain is wired. They can't live inside. They have to be outside.
Yeah.
So they have to stay in a tent. They have to stay under a bridge. They can't. And we say, well, there's something wrong with that. Well, when our primitive brain, we didn't have houses until how many years ago? So I just love everybody. I can't help it. I think as a society, and especially as Christians, it's our duty, it's our responsibility to take care of people.
Well, I would agree with that 100%. And we're going to get deep into the Serene Bean and what you guys did there, and we'll talk a little bit more about the city's homeless situation. But before we dig too deep into that, let's talk a little bit about you. You are the owner of Friends and Community News Group, and so we're going to talk about what that is. But before we do that, why don't you tell our audience a little bit about Tom Manke, the person? Tell us a little bit about you. The laugh.
It's hard because we change over the years, or we grow, or we should grow. I'm not the same person I was when I was a teenager. I'm not the same person I was when I was 30. And I think that we grow, and as we grow and mature, we look at life differently. And I find it very important that we do grow. Every day is a new day. People say they don't like school. If I could, I'd go to school every day, rest of my life.
You just like learning, or you like recess time?
No. I love learning.
You like learning.
Some people at the end of the day, they look back over the day and see what they've done. I want to look back over the day and see what did I learn, and if I don't feel I've learned enough, I'll click on whatever, and I'll go in and see what I can,
You learn.
Yes, it's it's something that we have a chance here in this country that we can learn, and as we learn, we still make mistakes. But if we're open to new ideas and we're open to life, I just find it so much better
Sure.
for me.
Sure. Yeah.
But that's
And that
that's
makes sense.
me.
That makes sense. That makes sense.
And I take the moniker now that I'm eccentric. I mean, it's seriously.
For sure.
When I look at things, I don't look at things typically as how a lot of people do. But some of my people that I look at as heroes, neither did they.
Sure. No, you definitely have a unique perspective, and you are definitely comfortable in your own skin. So let's talk about Friends and Community News Group. Okay. Some people call you a blogger. I've heard that online, read that. Some people call you a keyboard warrior, a social justice warrior. Some call you fake news. You refer to yourself as a journalist. Some just call you a troublemaker.
Yes, they do.
So what is Friends and Community News Group in your own words? What is it?
We, according to the law, according to the rules, we're an online newspaper. On a digital, in today's world, we don't even call it online anymore. It's called digital. I started it in 2009, April, in fact, of 2009.
Around 14 years.
Yeah, and I looked at it and I said, people are getting away from newspapers. People aren't watching television. They're starting to go to the internet to get their news. So where are people going? And so I looked at it and I said, well, they're going to social media. And so in 2009, I started a Friends Community, Owosso. Then we went to Friends and Community, Shiawassee County. Now it's all under the umbrella Friends Community News Group, and we have 49,820 readers today. I'm a counter. I constantly, the way I know whether we're doing it right is by numbers.
Yeah.
If we just had a story on Cooters, the new restaurant bar, we had over 400,000 reads.
Wow.
400,000. Normally we're at 30,000. And 400,000, it was just like, what? Yeah. But we have over 700 people outside the country, and we have people that read us in every state. We have NBC, ABC, Fox, and other mainline news. They follow us. Why? I've often asked that. I think it's not me. I think it's that our community is a bellwether, and we are constantly watched. And I know a lot of people here in our community, they laugh and they don't believe that. But almost every election, we have Fox in, we have Time Magazine in, we have The Atlantic in, we have when we had the barber here in town,
Your brother.
yeah, and he was in that fight with the governor. We had public news stations from Japan, Finland, England. I don't remember where else in the world that traveled here.
Yeah. It was international news.
So it is. So and here's why we're legally a online digital newspaper. Number one, we have advertisers.
Okay.
Number two, we have commentary. Number three, we have news.
What is commentary?
Commentary is, according to journalism, it's where there's it's where I give my feedback.
Okay.
What do other people believe? What do other people say? We do letters to the editor, and we do not edit them, and that's a big thing.
Yeah.
Some people edit.
Raw and uncut.
And we do it uncut because the grammar and everything is theirs. If they misspell words, it's theirs. It's the last thing I want, and the way I do a lot of interviews, I like to do my interviews where people send it to me. I send them the questions, and they write them. They write the answers and send them to me because I do copy and paste.
Yeah.
I get asked, Tom, as a journalist, that is straight up being lazy? And I said, no, because as soon as someone says, I didn't say that, I say it was
Change
a
my
copy.
words.
It was a copy and paste.
I've done several interviews with the Argus over the years, of whether it was with the Comstock or whether it was my business here. And every single time they misquoted me or changed the context of what I said. One time they changed it so bad that it got me in a little bit of heat with my bosses. And I just called and said I didn't appreciate the way they wrote it. And they said, well, that's how we interpreted what you said. And, so I always am so on guard when I do interviews with news outlets, because I'm like, if you just will say, what I said, I'll live with my own words. I'll stand by my own words. I'm not going to apologize for my own words unless I said something offensive inadvertently. But if you're going to misquote me or take what I said out of context to fashion the story the way you want it to read, that's an issue. But some people would say maybe that's what you do, that you take a story and interpret it in your own way to shape the opinions of how people should look at that news story.
Well, here's the best. First of all, I'd like to do 2 plugs if I can. Number 1, if you don't subscribe to the Argus, get the Argus. Number 2, get your Independent every week. That's for local people here. I get, why would you do that? Well, we need both. We need as many news outlets as we can, and we're fortunate in this community that we have 3.
We're one of the few small towns, small communities that still has a printed newspaper.
Yeah, it's a daily. Now, I can't say their name. I gave them a plug one time. I told our readers to please go out and buy the paper. I can only call them the Daily. I told my readers to go out and buy the paper, and I put out, and that was read by 21,000 readers. They put out 4,000 or something. I'm not positive. Papers a day. And I told people, please go out and buy the paper today. The story got taken down. Social media told me that they had made a complaint because their name is a registered name, and I'm not allowed to say their registered name.
Oh, wow.
And I said, you know what? Okay, but I'm still going to plug them.
Yeah.
I still like them. Well, I just did say their name, didn't I?
You did.
But I'm
I was
sorry.
wondering, are you going to get in trouble, Tom?
I apologize. Just buy the local Daily. We need. No, seriously.
Yeah.
Do they like me? No. Do we look at things differently? Absolutely. When you asked a question, and it was a good question, about journalism and the stories today.
Sharp headline or provocative headline. The 99% of news you see today, provocative headline to get people to share it. They don't even read it. They read the headline. And
Correct.
Then there's a whole story written that's written in a way to shape how you should think about this story instead of just reporting the news.
Unfortunately, okay, and I'm straight up on this. I do a lot of writing 11 o'clock at night until 5 in the morning because I do international news. And the way I do my international news is I take it off the newswire. So I get it at the same time off the newswire as Fox, CNN, NBC, ABC, and the rest. So I'm getting it out of Uzbekistan or Ukraine or the Middle East or Japan or China. I'm getting it at the same time and that's when most of the international news comes out, between about midnight and 5 in the morning.
You're a third shifter.
But I'm first, second, and third. I take naps.
Yeah.
I have to. If I'm here this morning,
Yeah.
I might take a nap this afternoon unless I've got someplace I got to cover. But what I find is when that news comes across the newswire, I don't have to send it to a producer. Now, people don't understand this. They don't believe this. I get people all the time, they'll say to me, Tom, you lied. That is not what ABC said. That is not what Fox said. That's not what
What I said.
Max
Yeah.
or whatever. And I say, well, it's the same story. But I did a copy and paste off the newswire. All news today, they write or they speak to an audience that they shape, that they want. I got accused yesterday of being far left and a communist. Also yesterday, I got accused of being far right. I just write it the way it is. It is the way it is, and so yeah, I did a story on. I just published a story on our former President Trump, who is in a lot of legal problems. Immediately, how dare you run this story? Well, I think the far left was surprised I ran that story too, because they think I'm just gonna. But no, it is what it is, and that's how I write it.
Yeah. So you do not take a story. Your online paper is not an opinion piece. It's reporting the news. When you write your opinion, is it delineated that this is my opinion and this is the news story?
Yes. In fact, if there's a news story, I have it down. I have it right down. This came through. Now, our local paper uses AP a lot. I like to use Reuters, and I use others. My Al Jazeera, South China Morning Post, BBC. I check all of those all the time. I'm constantly going boom, boom, boom to get what is coming across the news wires right now. What is the latest story coming across? Sometimes we get stories, and I'll publish the story, and then it is silenced.
What do you mean silenced?
Very interesting story. A few months ago, President Biden talked to the premier president of China. It was a tough conversation, and the way the media put it across the United States was that Biden pretty much laid it in how it was going to be. At 12:01 a.m., the story came across that the president of China had just spoken to the Chinese people over Chinese TV. And he laid it in on how Biden is no one, and that the Chinese people, and he used, that it's Asians, they like to use, we use metaphors, they use Confucius type sayings. So he was saying all
Proverbs.
these sayings. That was 12:01, and he came on Biden heavy. I immediately had it up by 12:20. I figured the other stations, media would have it up by 1 o'clock. Had to go through the producers, so of course Fox is going to rewrite it to theirs, CNN is going to write it to theirs, and everyone's going to twist it.
Cater to their audience.
Nobody ran that story. It was dead. All mainline media shut the story down. And it was like, why? And then it dawned on me, because China made fun of us, made fun of our president, and we had just talked about how tough our president was, so we were.
You're saying the mainstream media here in America wrote an article making it look like Joe Biden really hammered down and gave it to the Chinese, and then the Chinese version of that same story was that their president really kind of belittled our president, made a joke of him, and our local media, or not local, our national media outlets didn't want to cover it.
But the world media did.
So how many readers did you get on that story?
Not a lot. That's the thing.
Do you think that Facebook has some
Yes.
say in if those stories get out there?
All social media, we have found that shadow banning is real. There are words that we can't. in social media, and here's a big thing, and here's something I'm going to recommend to people that are listening today. Follow. You're not going to see this on regular television. Follow what's happening right now in Washington, where they've got the Twitter's all the top Twitter people in front of Congress, and they're asking them tough questions, and they're admitting they shadow banned our government senators, our congressmen, because they were from the wrong party. Mm-hmm. And they shadow banned them. They wouldn't and a shadow banning is they put you down so you people don't see you.
You know, NBC just recently did a story on one of our local NBC affiliates did, I can't remember the lady's name. It's a Sunday morning show, and it was a big expose on the Twitter files. I was shocked to see that NBC was actually reporting the government involvement in this, because typically NBC won't report anything that's negatively affecting their agenda, I guess I'll just say. Right. But it was pretty, what's the word I'm looking for? It was pretty incriminating, the stuff that they were showing on the show. But it was on a Sunday morning at like 9 a.m. show that nobody watches.
Nope.
And I actually found it on YouTube, and it got nothing. It got no views on YouTube. So it's kind of odd that those kind of stories, you would think that would be, if it's true that our government was involved in utilizing the social media platforms to shut down stories that could have incriminated certain political candidates.
The FBI.
If that's true, why is that? Why would every media outlet not want to cover that? That's when you have to ask, what is going on here?
Well, what we're hearing right now, if a person watches this, what's going on in Washington, they are admitting that they worked with the FBI through a second. I'm trying to remember how the best way how this was, but they didn't do it through normal channels. They did it through these channels that weren't supposed to be able to be followed.
Sure. And
they know the amount of times, and they just asked the person who was the head of the head person of Twitter. We have down here, you talked to the FBI 200 and some times. Won't talk about it.
Yeah.
What did you talk to the FBI on? Did they tell you to do this? Nope. We did all of this on our own. We shadow banned all our own. This was all, we did this, the government. So what did you talk to the government about? Nothing, crickets. Now, you know, there's a lot of fake news out there. There's a lot of, I hate it. And I'm going to tell you, I see fake news from the right, and I see it from the left.
100%.
And to me, the far right and the far left are virtually the same. They're just.
Well, listen, people who like to watch Fox News call CNN and MSNBC fake news. People who like to watch CNN and MSNBC call Fox fake news. People will call you fake news.
Well, they do it all the time.
How do we know, as the average everyday person that has to get our information from somewhere? We're not getting it from the newswire. How do we know that yours is what we should believe? Or how do we know that Fox should be believed or CNN should believe? How do we even know what's really happening in these situations?
Who does know? That's why on mine, you'll see that it's kind of like a lot of, and we do this today. It's like a college paper. When I do a story, I give in the story all of our sources. I name the sources. For instance, I just did a story on the MSU shooting. Terrible. I had 6 sources in the story. All the way from, I even got information from the UK Independent. And the Independent had put stuff up before our local did. Our local didn't have the names of the people who
The victims.
The victims. The UK had it up. I'm going to say a half hour before the United States put it up. So I listed the independent UK stated NBC, CBS, Reuters, AP. That's why it's right there. No, I don't take and rewrite. A lot of journalists do. I mean, I just find that the stories are so already written to an audience that if I change it,
Yeah.
whatever.
Yeah. So let's get back to friends and community. Okay. You actually have two pages, right, on Facebook. You have Friends and Community Owosso and Friends and Community Shiawassee.
Shiawassee County, and then it all comes underneath our webpage, which is Friends Community News Group.
Okay. So you report anything. It's not just politics or not just local. It's not just national. You'll report anything that you feel is relevant for people to know. Are there other people curating these stories than you, or is it just you?
I'm sorry?
Are there other people curating these stories, or is it just you?
No, I have others. I at one time, this is if you remember Huffington Post. Do you remember Huffington Post?
I do.
Well, when Huffington Post first started, no one got paid. All the writers that wrote on it, none got paid. What they got was their name in a byline as the writer, and it went out to X amount of people. So other people would see that they wrote it, and then they might get a phone call from such and such a newspaper or such and such a media on, I liked what you wrote, we'd like to interview you, or they even had big names too that wrote, but no one got paid. I tried that. And it's how much you going to pay me? Well, you're going to have 30,000 reads today. You're going to have 120,000 reads. This story, I really believe, is going to hit 200,000 reads. I had one story that did 1 million reads. That story I got hit. It was a quote. I love this. I just got to share this. Our governor said in a speech on television live, she says that people who were not wearing masks, that were not following COVID rules, that we had to approach them and first be nice, but then make sure that they were following the rules. Whoa. So I wrote her quote. Social media likes to have US Today. USA Today does a lot of fact checking on me, and they didn't like that. So what they did was they came on and they said she didn't mean what she said. She said it, but she didn't mean what she said.
I believe the direct quote you're referring to is she said to implore them to do it nicely but also forcefully, correct?
Yes.
That was the quote. I remember it.
Thank you very much. Yes. However,
no fake news here at AZ.
Yeah, well, but unfortunately, she didn't like it. We had over 1 million reads on that. Again, mainline news did not carry that quote. She said it on television. No one ran that quote. But we did.
Yeah, and that one was popular. So what then? I mean, you started this paper in 2009.
Yes.
You have a website, but most of your reads come on Facebook, correct?
Websites today, they might have been hot in the 1990s. So hot in the early 2000s. Today, you only use your website, to take people from social media to your website, because you can say things on your website you can't say on social media.
Sure. You're playing in a different sandbox.
Your sandbox is you can say what you want to say. There are words that you cannot use in social media. One word is God. Yeah, you can't use that word immediately. You get shadow banned. You can't use murder. We're constantly looking. So what you'll find is, and not only us but others, we start hyphenating or misspelling words, or it's so the algorithms does not pick it up.
Gotcha. Okay. So what then? So 2009, you started this. What is your desired result? You spend a lot of your time writing these stories, following things. I've seen you cover everything from a new business opening to a local fire to national news to city council meetings to school board meetings. This is taking up a lot of your time. So, I guess before I ask what is your desired result, what are you trying to accomplish, I guess I would say is most online news outlets, you can read like the first paragraph and then you have to pay to subscribe to read the whole story. Nobody has to pay to read your stuff.
No.
Anybody can read it, even if they don't follow your page.
Right.
They can read your stories. So do you make money? And if so, how do you make money? And if you, well, I guess let's answer that first. How do you pay for your time?
I have advertisers. Let me put it this way. I'm eccentric, correct?
Correct.
I'm a workaholic. I've been a workaholic my whole life.
Your brother's a little like that.
At 17, I had 2 different businesses. And I've owned businesses all my life, multiple at the times. Probably that's why my last marriage didn't work. It worked for 25 years,
Yeah.
but she got smart and it was just like I added another thing to the. So no, it's we get along great. We've been divorced 17 years, but we get along great.
That's good.
But that's it. My life.
So you're saying is you don't necessarily need the money. You make
No.
you make some money. You do this as more of a hobby, as more of a you
no,
feel
it's a
like a
business.
responsibility.
It's a business.
Okay.
However, I look at it as a ministry.
Okay.
And
So then if it's a ministry, so every ministry, I've been involved in ministry, every ministry, is for a purpose, for a desired result. We have some outcome that we're looking to achieve in the lives of people, the lives of the people we're ministering to.
Yes.
So what is Tom Manke's desired outcome? What are you wanting Friends and Community News Group to achieve? What gap in the market are you hoping to fill? What is, in your own words, what is the end goal of Friends and Community News Group?
one of them, there's several.
Okay.
Number one is small business. I love small business. Small business does not have the money to market themselves.
Can attest to that.
And you're look at your business. You market people. Mm-hmm. So you go into this brand new small business. They opened up on virtually no money.
Right.
They really don't have much of a business plan, but they want to do it.
Right.
I want to come alongside of them, and I want to get them as many views as possible.
Okay.
For instance, there's a small clothing store here, just opened up. We had over 25,000 views on that. And they're less than 800 square feet.
So do you want these small businesses to advertise with you, or you're wanting to just cover them so that they get exposure?
I'm covering them so they get exposure. They can't afford. So the bigger people who can afford, I get them more press. Okay, for instance, a small business opens up. I'm going to come in and I'm going to do a couple stories on them. I'm going to keep coming in and plugging them, keeping up just to make sure that they're doing and keep them going. And they don't even have to have the same political views as I do.
Right.
In fact, they can have absolute opposite views, and they just look at me like, why would you write a nice story on me? And it's like, why not? I want to see you grow.
Keeping it about their business.
Yes, keeping it on the business.
Okay.
I want to see our community grow. I want to see I can't stand hypocrisy. I can't help it. I'm straight up. I am what I am. I say I write everything as a story. I present the story as how it is. Let the chips fall as they may. We have, even with the way news is put out here in this community, there are some people who are they're Teflon.
Okay.
We don't say anything bad because you're just causing problems. Well, no.
I've never known you to cause problems, Tom.
I present it.
Okay.
If it's a problem, that's up to you.
Sure.
I just present it. And that's why I have readers from the far left, the readers from the far right. I have people who from all, and that's what I want. And the best way that I know I'm doing it right is when I have a story and I have people from both sides criticizing. When I walk into a room as a journalist, I find that a lot of journalists, we have a low self-esteem. We want to be liked. And I find so many, they walk into a room, and it's a room of politicians or it's a room of whatever, and they want to be, hi, how are you?
Yeah.
Good to see you. I walk into a room, and it's a news story, and it's politicians or whatever. I want them to look at each other and say, what the is he doing here?
I think that happens.
It does. I don't, and I've been straight up. I've told the Owosso City Council, I said, I don't want to be your friend. I don't want you to like me. If you like me, then that means I owe you something. I don't want to ever owe you. It is what it is. So I might put out a nice story on you today, and then tomorrow I have to put out a second, and it might not be as flattering. It doesn't mean I don't like you, but a story is a story. In fact, here's a good one. In case I ever get arrested, here's a good one for you.
Listening.
I had a file photo taken of me getting handcuffed. The police just laughed when they did that. Why do you want that? I said, I need a file photo. So if I ever get arrested, I can get that story out. I can make a phone call, and the story can be put out before anybody else's. It'll just say, file photo. I don't care.
Yeah.
Life is, again, every day we wake up, thank you, Lord, for this day. Lord, help me to be better today than I was yesterday. Lord, help me to be real, and help me to have a fun-filled, action-packed adventure day.
So I would agree. Like I'll read the comments on your stories, and there's it stirs the pot gets stirring, and then when you see that there's some tension, you'll chime in and you'll stir it up a little bit more. So
Is it stirring up?
Well, that's what some people would say, that you're stirring it. But I guess my question would be,
Count the comments.
Oh, I know. It's crazy.
You don't
how
go
many
by
comments.
comments. You can't go by comments.
Okay.
You go by emojis.
Yes, that's what the algorithm rewards too.
Emojis, I'll tell you what. And this is
What's your
very
number one
important.
used emoji?
Pardon me?
What's the number one emoji that gets used on your post? Is it the like?
Thumb up
Okay.
and hearts.
Okay.
Here's what's crazy. You'll look and you'll see the same 5 to 10 people coming on and just bashing.
Arguing back and forth.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then you look over to the emojis. Okay, let's talk politics for just a second. Here's something very important. And I know,
This might have to be a 2-part episode.
well,
That's all right.
you folks on the left, seriously, I've told you this before, and I'm serious. This is truth. The people on the right do not want to argue. Most people on the right, they're not going to chime in. But what they do is they use an emoji. So I'll have a story, and say, for instance, it's more kind of it tends to favor more towards the conservative view. I'll have some very far left, half a dozen come in and chime in. And you'd look at that story and you'd just think that they were the ones doing the speaking. Then you look over at the emojis and you see 250, 300, 400, 500 emojis with a thumbs up or a heart. And then you look at how many emojis that are laughing, you might see a dozen, you might see 20.
Way off balance. So do you think you get criticized more from the left in terms of political leanings? Do you get criticized more from the left or criticized more from the right?
More from the left, verbally, in writing, because the left is more verbal. The right isn't as verbal.
Why do you think that is?
Because I've asked questions to, if you want to call them focus groups, 200 Republicans that are sitting in a meeting, and I ask them, they'll say something about some story or something, and I'll say, yeah, you didn't say anything. No, we're not going to. We don't. You can't, because they come after you. They come after your family. They come after your work. They call your employer. And it's just like,
I will admit I've had times where I've chimed in on something that was conservative leaning. I don't know if it was even on your page, but on social media, I've had times where I've chimed in on something or posted something that I thought, or shared something that was maybe conservative leaning. And I don't get too political on my personal Facebook page. I really try not to get political at all. But the people that have attacked me, it's some of the people and I guess I would assume they're on the left, but I mean, they'll come after you personally and attack your character, and they don't even know you. So that has been a little surprising. But you said you feel like you're doing it right when you're getting attacked from both sides.
both sides. As a journalist, you have to have thick skin. If you don't have thick skin, go get another job.
Yeah.
Because otherwise you're just playing to people and you're being fake.
Yeah.
You got to tell it the way it is, whether you like it or not. It is. It's like right now, things that you're not going to see typically on some of the right-leaning mainline media. Former President Trump is he's against the ropes right now.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, I get told, why are you saying this? Why are you writing?
Yeah,
He
lawsuits
is.
in multiple states.
He is. And so if you're still for him, that's fine. If you're for Biden, fine. I don't care who anybody's
Quick question on
for.
that.
It is what it is.
Do you think Trump is running for president again to avoid his legal troubles?
Yes. I'm okay. Okay. Folks, that's my opinion.
I would tend to agree with you.
And it's kind of not just my opinion. I'm getting this off the news wires from others, from both sides.
Because if he's president, he can't be prosecuted by the states.
Well,
By the states. The lawsuits he has in the individual states, which there's multiple states that have lawsuits against him, they can't prosecute him because they're not criminal.
All I'll say is this, is the far left is just taking whatever they can, mud, and they're throwing it against the wall. And I'm telling you, is going to stick.
Sure.
It's just the way, it's like, okay, the papers he had in his house, well, Biden had them. And what I'm surprised at, well, I'm not surprised, because he is Teflon, and that's
Sure.
Obama.
Yeah. Yeah.
No one is asking, does Obama have papers?
You mean the classified documents?
Yes, classified documents. Does he have any?
They're saying presidents probably from decades have had them.
All have them.
Yeah.
We know that. In fact, I think it was in Reagan's library. If I'm not mistaken, it was either in Reagan's library or Bush's library. There was documents in there that were still classified.
Yeah.
And they had to take them out of the library.
Well, and there is a rule now. I think Obama passed a rule. Well, Bush, second Bush, passed a rule that a president could declassify documents. And then Obama made a rule that a vice president could also declassify documents. So nobody knows if these classified documents are indeed were in fact declassified before they were taken out. That's kind of the controversy. Of course, what most people read is the headline: former president is found with classified documents. Yes. And of course,
people don't like to read.
And there's
today.
levels of classification. I mean, a classified document could be something that's very low classification and very high. Either way, it doesn't look good that our former presidents, current president are doing these things. But I want to try to, because we could go down a rabbit hole all day talking about Trump and Biden.
Oh yeah, but here's something real important. We're on social media. I'm looking at right now what do we go to next? How do we get news across? And I have the document, or whatever you want to call it, press documents, whatever. I'm on the main floor now over at the house at the Capitol. So I have those
Press credentials.
Press credentials. Thank you very much. So I'm down there on the floor, so I can hear things from both sides, and I was just there, and I talked to two young ladies here. I'm going to say 24, 25, and it was their first day there, and they were going to try and do news on TikTok. And it was like, wow. Well, first of all, I'm thinking, is the Chinese algorithms going to allow them to put up, I don't know.
Sure.
But we have Reels also, which, and so.
And YouTube Shorts.
YouTube is kind of, YouTube is getting to be like the internet. I mean, web pages. I mean, it is, but what we're finding is the younger the people are, the less time for comprehension they have.
Right.
At one time, you had to get it down to 2 minutes. At journalism, it used to be, the story used to be, you build up to the final thing. You build up. Now you have to give boom, and then take it on back down. Social media, if you want to reach that Gen Z, under 30, they're different than how you meet millennials.
Sure. I mean, yeah. I mean, we are learning that the social media landscape changes all the time. You have had more traction consistently over a period of time on Facebook than a lot of accounts that I've seen. And I want to talk about why you think that is. But before I do that,
Ready to change anytime.
Oh yeah. It could change at any time. Well,
Anytime.
because you don't own it, right? I mean, you own that name, but that page really is owned by Mark Zuckerberg. And at any time, if he wanted to remove it, he could do it, and doesn't have to prove why he did it. He could just take it down. So there's some vulnerability there. But your page has stayed active, and not just active, but it grows. Your pages continue to grow. Your subscribers continue to grow. Your engagement continues to grow. So that is a very unique thing. I've often wondered, because we've worked with a lot of different political candidates, and the conservative ones that we've worked with, their pages, their Facebook pages and YouTube pages and their Twitter accounts would get shut down constantly if they mentioned anything against, non-conservative candidates. And, a guy that we worked with, Garrett Soldano, who ran for governor, had a Facebook group of almost 400,000 people that got shut down in a day because he was covering the press conference of your brother during all of that at the lockdown. And I mean, Fox News was there, CNN was there, you were there, everybody was there. Garrett's covering it live, and they shut down his page. 375,000 people shut it down in a day, and the only warning he got was for advocating the spread of infectious disease, and that page has never come back. You've been able to cover those types of stories and maintain your presence to grow your engagement. So I'd like to get some insight as to if you know why that is. Before I do that,
I don't write it myself. Most, again, just like our local newspapers and just like our local media, television media, we're a
what is your page categorized as?
online news.
Okay, so maybe that's why. Like, maybe the rules for a candidate or just a person, a citizen, maybe they don't consider an everyday citizen to be qualified to report on these things. Maybe because your page is qualified as online news, then it's allowed to report on things even if it's not as they would deem factual. And maybe that's what the deal is there.
Well, they use, like I say, USA Today. It does a lot of they were doing a lot of fact checking. That's who they used. But because I use Reuters, NBC, ABC, Al Jazeera, South China Morning Post, because I'm constantly using, for instance, when the barber was doing that thing, I'd even use from M Live. Mm-hmm. So I'm constantly using other people views along with, and then I'll have on mine will come in and it'll say from Friends Community News Group, FCNG,
right?
Then ours. So
a lot of people have strong opinions about Tom. I mean, when you're going throughout the community, you go to a city council meeting, you go to, the name Tom Manke comes up, and some people like to hear that name, and some people just get angry when they hear that name. Do you feel like you're misunderstood?
No.
You think people got you right?
No, they got me right. I'll tell you what. I my critics are my number one readers.
Yeah.
This is so hard to believe. I know, I can see, and that's every reader. I can see that's one thing we can do. Track. We have algorithms that social media gives us to track, and social media tracks it for us. And I find that the people who dislike me the most, of course, they're the ones who speak the most. They write the comments the most, and the ones that like me, they just put up an emoji.
Yeah. So you mentioned earlier that our area is what's considered a bellwether, and there are about 6 or 8 bellwether counties in the United States. What bellwether means is typically, as this county votes, so goes the national election for president. Yes. So, little known fact maybe, but Shiawassee County has voted every single president correctly since Abraham Lincoln, with the exception of Thomas Dewey, who is from Owosso, so that's why people from here voted for him. And the only other one that did not select it correctly was Joe Biden in the 2020 election, correct?
No.
There's one more?
From Grand Rapids.
Gerald Ford, because he's also from Michigan. So obviously being a Michigan candidate was able to sway some more votes. So when you say Owosso gets a lot of attention from national media outlets, we're in Shiawassee County. We're the biggest city, or micropolis, they would call it, in Shiawassee County. So when these national elections are happening, there's about 5 or 6 counties in the country that these pollsters and politicians are watching. And so the news outlets. So when there's big news in our area, like local barber defies governor's orders, or activist group Stand Up Michigan formed in Shiawassee County, there's attention drawn to that. So do you think that, because what I want to figure out is why you think you have so many followers, so many readers. You're up to almost 50,000, you said. Do you think that it has to do with the fact that we are bellwether, or is it because of the content you're curating?
I think it's a little bit of everything. I always say I don't think it's I'm not the best writer in the world. That's probably why I like copy and paste from the news wires. And it's kind of fun when someone calls me a liar and I say, that was copy and paste. And well, CNN didn't say that. Well, I know they changed the story, whatever, or Fox changed, or Max. What is that? Newsmax?
Yeah, I think they're going out of business.
I don't know, but they're those extremists. It's just, and I just try and keep it real. But I don't care. I don't care if a person likes me or not. I don't write to cater to one person. I write and I'm like a pipeline. The news comes down the pipeline and we just take it. We're a facilitator. We just take it and here it is.
I've heard you say that before a lot. I've heard you stand up at city council meetings and say, I don't care what you people think about me, which is a bold thing to say in the world we live in, because people don't say things out loud that could possibly be offensive. I mean, everybody's so afraid to say anything that could trigger somebody. But you are not like that. Have you always been that way? And do you genuinely, Tom, not care? I mean, everybody cares what somebody thinks. There's got to be somebody that you're hoping to please, somebody that you're hoping to get their attention. When you write what you write, are you poking at specific groups, or are you just saying, I'm going to write what I think is right and what's true, and I don't care what anybody thinks about it?
Again, I look at it as it's how the chips fall. And if the chips fall today where a politician is doing a good job, fine, give them a pat on the back. If you find out tomorrow that they lied to the public, they're hiding things, and I'm telling you, that goes on more. Okay. Here's a little thing. I may have a lawsuit coming up against the city of Owosso, so I'll just break it right here.
Breaking news.
Breaking news. Yes. Believe it or not, 9 years ago, I look at it this way. I look at when we as media, as we as press, wherever you go, I don't care if it's a county meeting, I don't care if it's a state meeting, a presidential, whatever. You get to ask questions, always. Owosso City Council does not like questions. So 8 years ago, they got so angry at me that I would get up and I'd ask questions. And I'd sit back down, waiting for them to respond to everybody in there. And these were good questions. It's like, okay, why is our water rate going up? Or why does if you Google Owosso's water, it comes up that it's one of the worst waters in the state, but we know it's not. Why is that? So, 8 years ago, we had an influential, very wealthy individual here in Owosso. They give a lot of money to different organizations.
Is it someone visiting, or this is a resident?
Now, this is a resident
Okay.
who is also on the city council.
Gotcha.
We just had an election, and it was about the burning ban. And people in Owosso, by 65%, wanted to be able to burn, whether it was a fire at night or it was their garbage. 65% voted in election. It was the third election, in fact, over this. And they said, overwhelmingly, we want to burn. Okay, first meeting. This very influential, wealthy person sat there, leaned back in his chair, and he says, I think we need to revisit this, and I think we should vote on this and shut down the burning. And everyone looked at him, and they said, what? There was just a vote. And he crossed his arms, and he says, well, I don't care what the voters want. They elected me because of my intelligence, and they know that I'm going to do good for them. Two local papers had sat their pencils down. I wrote it down. I published it. Next time I seen him, he walked up to me and he says, Tom, what's the matter with you? I said, what?
How often do you get that question? Tom, what's the matter with you?
And I said, what? He said, why did you print that? I said, you said it. He said, the other two didn't write it. I said, I know. I wondered why they didn't write it. They put their pencils down, but you wrote it. You said it, so I wrote it. He says, what is the matter with you? Why aren't you doing it? Why are you not just writing what we give you as the others? Those are kind of like,
Yeah.
what?
Yeah.
What? And I looked at him and I point blank said, you know what? I said, here's something that you got to understand about me. I really don't care if you like me or not, and I don't want your money. Money does not motivate me. He looked at me and it was like I slapped him. He says, you are dangerous.
And you're like, danger is my middle name.
I didn't. I just stood back. So that brings us to today.
Okay.
I was kicked off the table, off the journalist table.
At City Council.
City Council. If you go there, you'll see two local papers that write what they give them. And that's why they get to sit at the table.
Okay.
Get this. They made a rule 8 years ago that if you ask questions, you could not sit at the press table. You could only sit at the press table if you only, this is honest to God truth. You could, they just told me this and my attorney. You could only sit at the press table if you only reported what they said. But you could not ask questions. So they kicked me off the press table. So I found another table. Well, our city manager doesn't really care for how I write local stories. So they took all tables away. And they told me I could either stand or sit in a chair. But I could not use the press table because I asked questions. Now, that's totally against my Fourth and First Amendment rights. First Amendment, I can write whatever they say. I can write, and I can ask questions. But if you're just a person who wants to walk in, you're allowed to ask questions and make a comment. However, if you're media, by their rules, you're not allowed to ask questions, and you're not allowed to speak. You can only write what they tell you. Just like that city councilman had told me 8 years ago. Yeah.
Interesting. Well, obviously we've had some controversy within the city council as of recent, and I do want to talk about that. But I want to kind of go down the path of, what developed you as a person, as a man, as how you became the man you are today? I know you were born and raised here in Shiawassee County, Owosso, correct? You've lived here pretty much your whole life. You've been around for a long time, and I know you've owned several businesses. We're going to talk about those. You have a brother that is well known in the area, more well known since 2020. He's a barber, and of course he
And he has two movies on his books.
He has 2 movies. He's written 12 books. He actually was one of the first people to defy the lockdown mandates, opened up his barbershop, and we've had him on the podcast to talk about why he did that. So we won't rehash that. If you want to watch that, you can go watch that episode with Carl Manke. But one of his books is about 2 brothers. Is that other brother you?
No.
No? Somebody else?
Yeah. He hasn't written anything with me.
If he wrote a book about you, what would it be called? I'll let you think about that one.
My stupid little brother. I mean, the little. He had. He's 9 years. Older
There's an age gap
no,
there.
he's 11 years older than I am, and it's.
Well, the interesting thing is Carl has also told me, he's been cutting my hair since I was a little boy. He's also told me that he doesn't care what people think about him. You know, he's not seeking for people to not like him. That's not his goal. But if someone doesn't like him for what he does when he believes he's doing right, it doesn't lose sleep over it. So is that something that you guys were raised with? Did your parents teach you just not to worry about that? Have you guys always been that way, or is it just kind of a Manke motto? What is it?
I don't know. It's to me, I just believe that we're created to be real. You know?
Yeah.
We're created to be real, and if we're not real, then we're fake.
Okay, I can get on board with that.
I believe that God created us all into different individual personalities, and I believe that we all look at life in different ways. Those are God-ordained things.
So when Carl did defy the governor's orders, I mean, many said
he won 7-0 by the Supreme Court.
Many at the time, though, said it was illegal and that he didn't love people. He didn't care about people getting sick. There were people coming from all over the country to get their hair cut. I remember sitting in there to get my hair cut and watching people hand him, sit in his chair and say, "Mr. Manke, it's an honor." I mean, they were coming from California and everywhere to get their hair cut. But what was your opinion about all that? What did you think about him doing that? Was it the right thing? Did you support it? Were you talking him out of it? Where were you at on that?
He did what he wanted to do. That was up to him. It was up to him. If you noticed, I didn't hide in my basement. I was out, and I think this is very important for the listeners to hear that, or to watch and hear on podcast, depending on how on what platform you're using.
Yeah.
But here's how deadly this disease is. When our governor just did the State of the State, she never mentioned COVID-19 once. She never mentioned that you should get a shot. She never mentioned anything. In the last 5 weeks, 6 weeks, we've had 2 Democratic representatives that have COVID, active COVID, and they come to work in the Capitol and they're voting. And the Democrats are saying we have to have them there because their voters voted them in and they have to be there. So that 5-day isn't for them. But can you imagine if somebody from the other side of the aisle had COVID and came to the Capitol?
Well, particularly during the 2020, 2021 time. I mean, if you came around people knowingly have COVID, you were considered to be, on the same level as a murderer. I mean, you're putting people's life at risk. And of course you had to wear a mask everywhere you went. And or at least that's what they said you had to do. So yeah, I mean, certainly people that did that during those times were considered to be
But if you remember back,
troublemakers.
yes, but if you remember back at that time, we broke the story. It was originally, we broke it to a wider audience. A DJ up in Traverse City heard from a boat place that the governor's husband wanted their boat in, and we were on total lockdown. And he was asking, "Listen, I'm the governor's husband. Can't we get this?" The boat place was angry because they weren't supposed to get
Any boats?
So when I heard, I got a notice that this DJ had just put this out. So I called up to Travers, got information on it. So I drove up to their cottage on the lake, and I did a live broadcast from the cottage on the lake about the boat. And it just went.
Yeah.
Now, I'm not saying that I'm the only one,
Sure.
but I was the first one to go up there and do the live.
Yeah. So, I mean, again, that shows like you're traveling all over to get these stories. You're getting a lot of people reading it. But
I go all over the country.
But yet, with all of this, you're telling us, we asked earlier, what is the desired outcome? You said there were multiple. The one you hit on was small business. You're building this audience through the use of curating news stories, both conservative and liberal. It's not an opinion piece. You're just reporting the news. Sometimes you'll give your opinion in the comments, but mostly the stories that you're writing are. Now, when you cover local stuff, I do feel like with the local stuff, you're giving more opinion than just reporting. So the goal, though, to build the audience then is to be able to use that audience to help promote the local community, the local small businesses. That is correct, right?
That, and just to give a platform. I give a platform, that's a big thing. I've always given a platform to those who haven't had a voice.
Okay.
I do a lot of stories on people that don't have a voice, people who aren't liked, homeless, alcoholics, drug addicts, someone who committed suicide, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Again, I would rather go out and do a story on meet, so and so. He lives in a tent. Than I would to go and write a story about meet so and so just gave $5,000 to XYZ last week.
Sure.
Because
So if you say like this is your desired outcome, to help promote and push these things, then why do you think it is that people don't perceive that to be your intention? Why do you think it is that people perceive your intention to be, again, to stir the pot, to stir up trouble? And I know you're saying that the most of those comments are coming more from the left than the right. But if that's the perception, not by everybody, but by some, why do you think they're not seeing your intentions in what you're doing?
Because we're in a new time, a new environment. Everything that used to be done is not supposed to be done. Everyone is worried about their feelings today.
Sure.
I don't give a rip about your feelings. No, I don't.
Quote it.
Quote, yes,
Yeah.
I only care about the news and what it is. Let the chips fall. I'm told, but Tom, you're stirring the pot. Okay, I owned a restaurant. You ever made soup?
I have.
What do you have to constantly do with that soup so that it all comes together and gel?
You have to stir the pot.
And as you stir the pot, it takes the people from the bottom, it takes the people from the top, and whether they like it or not, they have to come and they have to go around and they're
Interacting.
They're interacting.
Yeah.
Now, some media they don't do that. They only focus on this lower group, this higher group, the center group, and all the little different factions.
And nobody's talking to each other.
Nobody talks to each other. Well, bottom line, you're going to talk to each other or
And this is one of the main
whatever.
reasons for my podcast is because I'm a big believer in conversation.
Well, am
And
I?
if somebody wants to get to know Tom Manke, sit down and have coffee with him. If somebody wants to get to know Tony Nash, sit down and have coffee with him. Come on my podcast. I'll tell you anything you want to know. I'm not hiding from anything. I'm not trying to be anyone I'm not. I have very strong beliefs, and I'll stand up for them and defend them when I need to. But people don't want to have conversation. There's a few people in our community that would adamantly disagree with me on a lot of things. I've invited them on the podcast. They won't come. They won't come have a conversation. And so I think, the fact that we have lost conversation, that if somebody doesn't believe like me, they're my enemy, they're now against me, I think that is what's hurting our society more than anything.
Yes.
I think that we probably all agree on 95% of things.
We do.
But there's these 5% of things, which are big things. There are certain things that I disagree with people that are big things. And
too.
that may cause us to not necessarily be close personal friends, but we can still communicate. We can still do business together. We can still dwell in a community together and build a community together and have this understanding that just because we don't see eye to eye on that issue doesn't make us enemies. There are certain things that somebody could believe that what I would maybe call them my enemy. In other words, if you think it's all right to walk onto a college campus and start shooting people, we're enemies. We're not going to ever agree on that.
Right.
But those are very few issues. There are a whole lot more things that we can agree on. And what I don't like, and what I don't like seeing in our community right now, is there are two agendas right now. There's a very strong conservative agenda. There's a very strong progressive agenda. Neither of those groups will sit down and have a conversation with each other and try to figure out how do we work together. And that, I think, is going to be detrimental for the growth of our community. And neither group, in my opinion, is handling it the right way. And that may be unpopular to some, but I think to immediately alienate someone that doesn't believe like you or think like you, you're never going to get anything done. So you're kind of acknowledging that, yes, I do stir the pot, but the goal is to bring the people from the bottom, the people from the top, or left and right, and the center, bring them all together to where at least they have to interact. Because I think when you interact with somebody, you still may walk away disagreeing, but
Right.
you can empathize, you can understand, okay, now I see why you have that issue. We still don't agree, but I understand why you feel that way.
And both extremes. Here's something that's very interesting. There's a theory. There's a theory that instead of political feelings being straight on a straight line, that it's actually a horseshoe. And at first, when I started reading and studying that, it was like, what do you mean on a horseshoe? But you find that the people like here and here dislike the people here in the center. They both dislike them. Mm-hmm. But you find that as these two groups keep coming together, they're so much alike.
Yeah.
It's just we've just used a different name now.
Yep.
And they yes,
You know what's funny, Tom? I have talked to some of the people in our community that I would consider to be the ones that are conservative leaders. They feel that progressives are progressive leftists are a real threat to their way of life. Then I've talked to progressive lefts. The leaders would say Christians are a threat to their way of life. So here you have these two groups who both feel like the opposite is a threat to their way of life, whether that be the ability to worship freely or whether that be to be inclusive, whatever is their way of life, these groups are a threat. So now this group is alienating this group. They're enemies. They're both fighting behind the scenes to push their agenda forward, and at no point are they coming together and say, how do we work together?
They never will, because what you've got is, and you've had this all through history. You've had it all the way all the way back.
Maybe not how do we work together, how do we
Biblical
dwell
times.
together? Yeah.
Well, biblical times, you had the extremes. We've always had the extremes. We have the extremes in every country in the world. We have extremes. And what has to happen is the center, the moderates, I call myself a conservative Democrat,
Okay.
which
Seems contradictory.
the progressives absolutely. The progressives. Let's be honest. The progressives are the far left group of the Democratic Party. They're not the main. They're not the main. They're not the. But
So would you
they're
say the
most
same thing,
vocal.
that the MAGA crowd is the far right of the Conservative Party?
Some, yes, absolutely, and I see. But let's look at this county. Let's be straight up. We had 59. It was 58.9 something percent. So let's say 59% of the people here in this county voted for Trump.
But not everyone that voted for Trump would consider himself MAGA. You know,
Correct.
that they saw the two options and
Absolutely.
said, I don't love Trump, but I definitely can't vote for Biden. That was, I think I don't know what the percentage on that is, but I'm saying the MAGA crowd that's Trump or die. Like Trump releases digital trading cards and people buy them. Like those people, those crazy nut jobs. I'm sorry if you're one
They
of
are.
them. And
That's my personal opinion. It is not the opinion of the Friends Community News Group, but that is my personal opinion.
my opinion as well. But then you have, like you said, the progressives that are over here. Those are the far right. But then you have the old school Democrat and the old school Republican, who really are more, would probably now at this day don't want to identify with either party because of the progressives, because of the MAGA. And now everyone just says, well, I'm a centrist, I'm a libertarian or whatever because of that. So how do we find the ability to bring this minority? I mean, they say the MAGA crowd is now under 30% of Republicans. I don't know if that's true. I don't know what percentage of Democrats are progressives. But I think the larger majority of Americans are in the middle.
They are.
So how do we get them to?
That's I ask politicians that all the time. I try and explain this
You have both parties catering to these smaller groups.
because I see the algorithms, because I see this every day, all day long. I can see the algorithms of the percentages. And what I see is Biden has a strong 25%. It doesn't matter what he does, he's got 25%. Trump, doesn't matter what he does, he's got 25%.
Right.
Now, when we take a look at across the country, you've got normally maybe 35% typically vote Republican and 35% typically vote Democratic.
Leaves 30%.
You've got to have that group in the center to win.
But these parties are not catering any longer to that middle. They're starting to cater to these extremist
They are.
groups, and it's gonna, in my opinion, that's what's tearing our community apart. It's what's tearing our state apart. It's what's going to tear our country apart, because it's causing division. It's not bringing together. Trump, in my opinion, is very divisive. He
Very
divided.
divisive.
Biden said he was going to be the great uniter, but he's not. He's dividing as much as Trump was. And so, we have these, and then of course you have people that look at these politicians as though they're the person that's going to save them or whatever. Trump was the reason for all my problems. Biden's going to be the reason for all my successes. And neither is true. Or Biden's the reason for all my problems and Trump was the one that was. They're just people. They're politicians. They have a lot of power. They can do a lot of things. But the power always should and has to come from the people. And this is why people need to be involved. And again, we can go down this rabbit hole forever. I want to stay on topic because really the purpose of this interview for me is to let the community. One second. I want to let the community have the opportunity to get to know you the way you want to be known. Okay, so I want to read a direct quote that you sent me, and I want you to talk about it. this is what you wrote me when we were talking about this podcast and what things we wanted to talk about. And I think it was important for us to talk about the things that are out there. Let's just address them. You're not hiding from it. I'm not hiding from it. You wrote here, I love God. I love people. I love reporting the news straight up, whether people are offended or not. My motto is to wake up in the morning and have a fun-filled, action-packed adventure day. You said that a couple times already today. Honoring my faith by being real. God is real, and I believe that he wants us to be real. So, explain. Or is that self-explanatory? That's it.
To me,
That's how you feel.
that's that's the way I look at life, and I wish everybody would look at it that way.
So if someone was going to sum up Tom Manke in a statement, and you wanted them, this is what you want people to know about you. You love God, you love people, you love reporting the news, you want to be real, you want to wake up and have a great day, you believe God is real and he wants you to be real. That's what you want people to know about you.
Okay, I have to separate the business side from the personal side.
Sure. We're talking about
because
we're
the
talking
personal-
about Tom Manke right now.
Okay,
We're not talking
personal
about friends and
side-
community.
Personal side, I wish all people could come to know God like I do.
Yeah.
Now, I have to separate that from the business side because I'm not if you notice, I don't write in a Christianese, you got to know, that's, now we're
Sure.
talking about my,
And I do believe people should be able to separate their business from their political views, from their religious views. Now,
Correct.
I, Tony Nash, am a follower of Jesus Christ unapologetically, but that's not posted on my front door. That's not on a poster. I'm not asking other Christians to say they're an ally of mine. It's just not who I am because this is my business. And if I decide to put something on my front door, which I have, then I'm not asking other people to participate in that. That's my belief, separate from what everybody else is. And so, because I believe there is business, Tony, who is a Christian man, which means I operate with integrity and with honesty, and I treat people the way they should be treated, the way I would want to be treated. I honor them. I don't defraud them. I do what I say I'm going to do, and if I don't, I apologize. So I believe that my Christianity molds that character and who I am. But I also believe that my business is my business. This isn't a ministry. This isn't a church. This is the place that I have built to support my family. And that means we do business with a lot of different people that come from a lot of different political views, religious views, and we keep it about that. And I think in our community, people are not able to separate their political persona or religious persona from their business persona. And again, I'm not saying that means you have to hide from who you are. I'm saying that the two are not, they can be mutually exclusive, in my opinion. Agree, disagree?
I totally agree. For instance, our conservative business people here in town, you would never find that they would stick a Trump flag in their window
Right.
and stick a sticker on the window that says, I'm MAGA.
Right.
Well, we do have a small percentage that, of course, says no one should ever do that. If they did do that, they should be whatever, taken out and put in the local and shot.
Right.
But that group has their own agenda.
Sure.
And if you don't agree with their agenda, then you're the enemy. And it's,
Well, and
and
that's-
again, it's we're not. What has happened, and this is a big thing to me. What has happened to where you live your life the way you want to, and you believe what you believe, and that's your journey. And your neighbor does the same, and your other neighbor does the same. And we're all on this journey. And we may not agree with each other. We may vehemently disagree on some things, but we're all together on the journey. And I find it very divisive when you have a group that comes and says, listen, if you don't buy into our mindset, you're the enemy and you deserve to be taken down.
Sure.
Now, that's very self-righteous.
If you have a belief, and it's a strong belief, then you should be okay with that, whether you're the only person that believes that or not. Do you want to create disciples? Well, if there's opportunity to create disciples through conversation, then yes, but not through societal pressure, not through economic pressure. If somebody comes to me and says, will you put this sign on my door, which we get all the time, local businesses, local charities, fundraisers, will you put this sign on my door? If I say no, like let's say the Girl Scouts, which have come to my door and said, will you hang this sign on your door to promote our Girl Scouts event? And if I say no, that doesn't mean I hate Girl Scouts. It just means I've decided that my business window is not the place to promote the Girl Scouts because I'm trying to promote my own business.
Correct.
That's it. It's not some grand agenda against Girl Scouts. And there have been, in our community, there has been pressure to hang signs and banners and posters or flags in windows. And if you decide not to do it, it's not just they didn't want to participate in that because their business isn't about their politics. It's they hate whatever I'm pushing or selling or promoting or whatever. And that's, to me, is wrong. If I decided I wanted to put a cross in my window, which I don't and I haven't, but if I did, but if I were to then go around and ask other businesses, will you put this cross in your window? And they said no. I should now, number one, I probably shouldn't do that, but let's say I did. If they said no, I should say, okay, thank you, and walk away. Not then to say, well, they hate Christians because they won't put a cross on their window. That's the difference. And so to me, where we're going wrong in our community, and if those of you who are listening, to try to get you to understand, if I came to your business and said, I have a sign that I created that says, Christ is King, and I worship him. Okay? Now, if I put that in my window, it's my right to do that. I probably will lose business. I probably will have people come to my door and see that and walk away. So I have to determine as a business owner, is it worth the risk? Is it necessary? Do I want to do that? Now, if I do that, that's fine. Now, if I come to your business, you listening, and I say, hey, will you hang up this sign that says Christ is King? And you say no, and then I go around and tell everyone you hate Christ. Does that make me a uniter or a divider? Does that make me a good person? Does that make me somebody who is following the example of what I'm trying to push? So this is what we're trying to say. And I'm speaking for Tony Nash. I'm not speaking for Tom Manke. I've gotten off on my own little tangent here. But I see this happening in our community, and it's not helping our community. And so it's something that we need to be aware of. Now, let me ask you this. Go ahead, please.
Can I just say this about, and this might be a little surprising thing, but we had a person, she's admitted this at the city council meeting. She went into local businesses, and she has an agenda, and she went into the local businesses, and she said, first of all, hi, my name is, I'm from the Owosso City Council, and we would like it if you would show inclusivity. And then she handed them a sticker and said, how many of these would you like, and how many flags would you like? When I asked at the city council meeting, when I told the city council that there were local businesses that felt that they were being pushed by this person. She stated to me and everyone in the room, she was only giving them the opportunity of doing what was right. And that was putting the sticker up and putting her flag up. Okay. Now, as Tony just said, if a city council person went around and they said, "Hi, will you put this sticker up that says Christ is King?" Because it's the right thing to do. Both are wrong. In my opinion, both are wrong.
Right? I agree.
If a group wants to do things together, fine. But to be pressured, socially pressured, and then be told because you didn't put our flag and our sticker up, you know what? We're going to tell people not to shop.
Right. How does that help our community?
It doesn't help our community.
How does it help? How does it help us live in a society? And so, I want to urge people to let's use some common sense here. I know that your agenda is important to you. I know that if you're going to go through the trouble of going around and ask people to hang something, that you're passionate about it and it means a lot to you. And that's great. That's awesome. It's admirable that you're so passionate about something that you would try to get other people to understand it. But don't lose humanity. Don't lose empathy. Don't lose common sense that says, you know what? Maybe this business just wants to sell T-shirts. Maybe this business just wants to sell gift cards or coffee or whatever it is that they're selling. Maybe this business just wants to provide for their family, and they think that if they put that in, it may inhibit their opportunity to reach a broader group. And so if they decide not to do that, it doesn't necessarily mean that they're against what I'm for or that they're against my agenda. It might just mean that they keep their business. And so if you're truly passionate about inclusivity or love or people or community or coming together or Christianity or Jesus Christ, if you're truly passionate about those things, then understand that those things cannot be forced upon people. They can be presented to people, and if people choose to accept them, that's great, and if they don't, that's okay too. Your job is to tell, to talk, to have conversation, not to dictate who is and who is not an enemy or an ally or whatever the case might be. And so I want to urge everyone in our community listening to let's start to use our common sense again. Let's start to have empathy. Let's start to understand that running a small business is hard. And sometimes you have weeks where it's like, can I even keep the doors open? Can I leave the lights on? Can I afford to pay my staff? And so to add this extra pressure from people who we're supposed to be dwelling together in a small community with, who we shop at Meijer with, who we run into at Walmart and at the post office and at Kroger, and who we're supposed to be able to get along with, it makes it hard enough to just keep the doors open sometime. So let's have empathy. Let's promote a community where small businesses thrive, that we judge them based on the merit of their customer service and the quality of their products and the friendliness of what they have or the creativity of how they provide their services and solutions. Their work, not based on their political views or religious views. And if you're on the opposite side of that, let's not lose humanity. Let's come together. And when we have disagreements, let's go sit at Foster Coffee together and talk about it. Let's have a cup of coffee and say, hey, why do you feel this way? What is your issue with such and such? And learn to understand each other. And we can still walk away disagreeing, but not walk away as enemies. And I think if we can do that, my goodness, how many problems would that solve? And not just Owosso, Michigan, but in the world.
Love it.
If our politicians would sit down and do that, that would be great.
But if I may ask,
Please.
the only way that we can do that is to, unfortunately, with some, is to force people into the conversation. So if you want to call it stirring the pot, otherwise people stay in their safe zones.
Sure.
And so sometimes someone, the cook,
Has to stir the pot.
making the soup.
Tom Manke, the cook.
No, I just leave it up to
Chef Manke.
I just want to. Here it is. Here it is laid out on the table. I get people say, "You just lay it out and then you disappear." Well, yeah, I'm the journalist. I'm not there to argue with people. Here it is. You guys discuss it.
Sure. Well, let's. I want to go through some things that I have written down here. A list of things that you've said about yourself. Okay. And I want you to explain. First of all, I've heard you say multiple times you have ADHD. Is that self-diagnosed, or have you been diagnosed by a doctor?
No, thank goodness.
Because it wasn't around when I was a kid.
Well, guess what? It wasn't when I was a kid either. In fact, here's a great story. When I was a kid, I had my own desk out in the hallway, and they thought at that time that was punishing me.
You were like,
Are you kidding me? Can I go out to my desk now?
Yeah.
I don't. This is so boring in this class. I mean, it's like, give us our assignment, let us do our work, and then boom, let's go on to the next. But to labor for an hour on the same thing, no, I can't.
I was the same way. I mean, in high school, especially middle school, like I usually got what the teacher was trying to say in the first 10 minutes. And then we went on for another 45 minutes belaboring the same thing. I'm like, I got it. Let's move on. But I also understand other people learn differently.
Yes.
Some people need more detail and more description. Okay, you have been diagnosed.
Oh, yes.
my chair
I was
just-
diagnosed at 40 years. Well, in fact, here's a good one. At 40, they told me that I couldn't have ADHD because that was a brand new thing and adults didn't have it. When I hit the age of 50, I was told that, yes, we've always had it, and it's just more prevalent now. But I look at it as a blessing. Society wants people with ADHD to feel inferior. I'm the opposite approach.
Mm-hmm.
I can hyper focus and get a story done in half the time that anyone with a normal brain can, and it'll be right, it'll be done, and it's ready to go. But I've hyper focused.
Yeah.
I also can drive down the road, which I used to do in a past lifetime, with my computer desk in my vehicle, and I'm driving down I-75 towards Detroit.
Typing.
I'm typing, I'm on two phones, and I'm eating a sandwich at the same time. And I can do it. And a person riding with me is just absolutely
Not recommended, everybody.
And I just look at them and I say, you can't do it because you're not ADHD. Can you multitask like this? Just a second, I got to take a bite. Okay. Yeah.
So if I see you driving down the road, I should avoid.
And just a second, let me check the computer on the orders right now, on the standings. Yes, contractor, your stuff will be out tomorrow. So.
All right, here's another thing you said. You said it on this podcast. Said you're an ordained minister, okay? Ordained to what and by who?
I got a call in my life at age 50 to go into the ministry. It was a very heavy call on my life at that time to leave the regular business world and to go to school and become a church planter. I leave everything up. The way I live is, okay, Lord, if you want me to do something, you show me and lead me and give me proof. I'm very much that person in the Bible, and I can't remember his name. He says, okay, make it wet. Okay, make it dry. I have to have...
the fleece.
Yes, the fleece. So I have to have multiple... I just say, Lord, you know me, you made me. So you know that you're going to have to prove this, so I know it's you that I'm hearing from. So I got called into the ministry. I had a vision, and it was a very strong vision. Scared me. For 60 days, I was every day. I had confirmation coming, letters from people who didn't even know they were sending me letters because I'd ask them later, and it was like, I sent you that letter? Yeah, here it is. Oh. And so I went to church planning school put on by Assembly of God, Pastor Dave Williams at Mount Hope.
Okay.
And then, but because I came from the Lutheran background and I was a lay pastor in a Lutheran church, I thought, well, I'm supposed to be a Lutheran. No, that was what I thought. And so I got into a seminary, and the seminary closed. So I said, okay, Lord, where am I supposed to go? And the next thing I know is I'm going to an Assembly of God school. Now, I'm a traditional Lutheran, and now I'm over into a Pentecostal school, and I've never been to a Pentecostal service in my life.
Yeah, it's a little different.
Yes, and then when I got out, my first church I served at was a Baptist church. So
You've run the gamut.
I find that...
So where did you get ordained?
I got ordained through a Christian Ministerial Association, and I got ordained in 2008.
I don't know if you know this, I'm also ordained. I got ordained in 2003, maybe 2. I had to sit before a council of 15 ordained men, pastors and deacons, and I got grilled. I got to write my own doctrinal statement, and then they grilled me on my own doctrinal statement. And I don't know that I've ever been more nervous about anything. But, yeah, it's crazy. Okay, so you also said you've been involved in prophetic ministry and that you have premonitions. Okay. Tell me about these premonitions.
You know, audiences who you're speaking to, some understand, some don't. So who I'm speaking to right now is an audience. If you're non-Christian, if you don't flow in different ways, you may not understand. But I very much believe in that when God calls us to do something, we're to do it. I was called to be a church planner. Everything was lined up. I was supposed to be in Ypsilanti opening up a church. Get this. I had a church in Ypsilanti contact me and say, we heard through the grapevine that you were looking at coming down to plant a church. Would you like to use our church? Churches don't do that. Mm-hmm. I'd go down to Ann Arbor, Ypsilanti, and I'd say, okay, Lord, send me the people who you want me to talk to today. And I'd sit down in a coffee shop. All of a sudden, people would just start coming up to that table saying, Lord told me I should come and talk to you. Everything was lined up. Everything. I'd gone to the Assembly of God school. I had taken the course. Everything was for church planning. And walked away.
So we see in the Old Testament God working through prophets, giving prophecies. In the New Testament, though, if I'm correct, don't we see that God says that he now uses his word? He's given us a more sure word of prophecy, and that the way God speaks to us now is through his word and not through the gift of prophecy? Or am I misunderstanding that?
We have fivefold ministries. It has nothing. And again, now we're talking about denominations, how denominations view the Bible, and
Sure.
I love it. I'll sit down with my Greek Orthodox priest friend. He views it completely different. I'll sit down with a Roman Catholic priest. I'll sit down with my Baptist friends, my Pentecostal friends, my Lutheran. Everyone views, but it's very clear that none of the gifts went away. What happened was when I rejected and said, I'm no long. I'm not going to Ypsilanti. I'm not. I just got wet feet. I'm not going to do this. I got hit with the prophetic side, the Pentecostal side. It was like, okay, you don't want to do that? Then here, how do you like this? Here's your new job. So, starting to get premonitions, visions, words to give to mainly other pastors and people I didn't know. And it was like, okay, Lord, you're giving me this word. How do I know it's from you, and how do they know it's from you? So, gives me 2 or 3 things that only the person who I'm going to talk to knows. I go to that person, I give them the 2 or 3 things, and then say, and here's the word that I've been given to give to you.
Well, let's
Some are good, some are bad.
let's hit on that then. I mean, we've had one recently here, the sitting city council member, that you and her have had some disagreements, about some things, and then you had one of your premonitions, as you call it, and it was about her specifically. And then instead of just having it and keeping it to yourself, you determined you needed to share that with her and with, I believe, some local police officers and the city council. Not the city council. Okay. So tell us how that whole thing happened. You had a premonition, and then why you felt like you needed to share it.
I didn't share it. She shared it.
Okay.
Okay. I followed, as the police said, I followed every rule that I was supposed to do.
Okay.
It was a very private letter only to her.
Okay.
It was not to anyone. It was just as other words given to me to give to other people. It's private. It's a personal word. With her, we had some disagreements. And then all of a sudden, I get the word, I'm to love her and to be there for her. And it's like, we don't look at life at all. Doesn't matter.
The same way you're saying, yeah.
Yes, it doesn't matter. Meet her where she's at. And then I had a vision, and it was the most vivid vision that I've ever been given. And that vision was so scared me, and it was so real. I immediately called the police because I felt she was in danger, extreme danger. Called the police.
Oh, her life was in danger.
Yes. So I called the police, and I'm not going to go into that, into the letter. Again, it was private, and what she wanted to do by put it out, that's her business. But that was not given to me to discuss. All I'm saying is it was so vivid. I notified not only local police, I called our sheriff directly. So our local police and our sheriff were, because this was so vivid, and I was so scared for her. And then I wrote her a letter that was just for her. She's very political.
Did she share the letter
Yes.
itself? I know I'd heard that she shared. Did she interpret, or she actually share the letter on?
She took the letter and she immediately called. She took the letter. She talked to the police, and the police said, "Yeah, he's already talked to us on it." Yeah. So that upset her a little bit more. So then she said in her political statement, was she was going to get some coverage out of this.
Yeah.
So she immediately contacted media outlets, Flint Journal, local papers, whoever would listen to her, and she gave them copies of the letter. And in that letter, there were some things in that letter that was spoken to me to give to her that only she knew. She told the police that I must have gone to her hometown and interviewed people to know these things. I don't know where she lives.
Yeah.
I have no idea. So I did only what I was called to do. It was private. Here it is. This is just between you two, between higher power and you. I've given it to you. You do with it what you want to do with it. I've been doing this for over 20 years. The first one that was ever given to me was to speak to a internationally known minister who travels the world and preaches in great big auditoriums and huge arenas and brings people to the Lord. And this is as fake as you can be.
Yeah.
And the word was given to me to call him out.
Yeah.
And when I said it to him, he immediately broke down. And then he went to a church, and he told everybody in the church at a great big meeting that he had to tell them some things about himself. And I said at that time, I said, Lord, I don't want to be Father Confessor. And it was like, well, you didn't open the church, did you? So from then on, it's been...
Well, so you think these are messages from God himself to you?
Well, let me put them this way. They're not messages to me. They're messages to people. And how I know that they're messages is because things are given to me to tell the people that only they know.
Sure.
It'd be like me if I had been given a word to give you today. I would first tell you something that only you knew and no one else could know. Mm-hmm. Not one thing, but probably 3 or 4 things. And then I'd say, okay, here's the word. You do with it what you want to do with it.
So she felt, and well, I don't know if she felt this way, or I don't know. I haven't spoken to her about it, but she has said multiple times that she has had a direct threat on her life, pointing at you, that you've necessarily threatened her life. So I don't know. I mean, it sounds like she's taken it as that was a threat from you to her life.
It got her a lot of publicity for her political side, which that's fine. It doesn't matter to me what she did with it. This is it. And the police said I did everything correct. So I gave it to them because I seen a vivid threat, and then I gave it to her, and then I walked away.
So let me ask you this: since I mean the premonition involved her losing her life,
She shared
it, so I won't go into the details.
That's fine. She can share whatever.
What I want to ask is, if that did happen or does happen, do you feel like that maybe makes you a suspect in a case like that? I mean, does the worry come to your mind is if I share this and it happens, does it make you appear like this was a premeditated thing?
Life is what it is. God's got my back. If he gives me a word to give somebody, I give it to him.
Sure.
And I've been blessed to be able to give 3 pastors. Well, 2 pastors I've given the word to. The third, I didn't, because that pastor doesn't flow into believing those type things. But both pastors are being blessed, and they've been given a new mantle. And their churches are going to grow because they're both different denominations. But God isn't a respecter of denominations, just people who follow him and do what he tells them to do.
Well, I've been in church my whole life since I was a baby. I don't know that I've ever met somebody that has claimed to have premonitions or visions from God. I know
Never
that
shared it.
I know that, you know, I was taught and I've learned and studied that the Holy Spirit, which is the third part of the Trinity, speaks to us in a still small voice and guides us and helps. You know, some people might call it their conscience, some people might call it Jiminy Cricket, some people might call it their inner being or whatever kind of spirituality they practice. So I believe that the Holy Spirit does guide and direct and lead. But from everything I can glean from the New Testament of Scripture is that the days of him giving direct revelation and prophecies and premonitions was gone. That's what was the purpose of giving us his written word. So that may be an area where I just don't know that I see that. I'm not trying to discredit you. I mean, if you say you heard it from, it's just not something that I, at this time of my life, believe or understand.
Absolutely, and I totally understand that, and that's where denominationalism comes in. We have a because of our personalities. We have, and I'm not going to mention names, but we have two churches in this community that are really growing right now. They've got church, they have schools. They are both are adding on. Both teach the word. Both are opposite ends of the spectrum of Christianity.
Well, I would say opposite ends of the spectrum in terms of practice.
Yes, that's what I mean.
Pragmatics,
Yes, that's what I mean. So you have different, and then so because of that, one church is reaching a certain group of people that the other church would never reach, and the other church is reaching a group of people that the other one would never reach. So we have in Christianity. We have Christianity is like it's a soup. We're all
comes back to the soup.
Yeah. Now, I came from the Lutheran side. I was very traditional. So to be hit with and I want you to understand something. 20 years ago, I could have gone into a ministry where I'd be the person on television standing up and making people fall down over here, and then telling people, and then laying hands in the
Benny Hinn.
But it was very much laid on my heart that to do that would be very detrimental to my. I'm only to do what I'm supposed to do when I'm to do it.
Well, listen, Paul says in Corinthians that some preach Christ out of contention, some preach Christ out of goodwill, some preach Christ out of cheer. But he says, nonetheless, Christ is preached, and I rejoice. So, you know, there are a variety of churches in our community, but in my opinion, anyone that lifts up the name of Jesus Christ is worthy of admiration, in my opinion. So, all right, let's get a little bit in as we end our episode here, because you and I could talk for hours. This could just go on and on and on. But if you're still watching, we appreciate it. We're trying to take you on this journey with us. Let's talk a little bit about your politics. You used to be a far left liberal, almost like an extreme liberal. You actually, at 17, won a jury trial. You were the first kid in high school charged with having marijuana.
I was.
Tell us about this. This is.
Yeah. I was the first one to be charged that didn't quit school and bow down.
Okay.
I fought it. I was accused. Jury found out that I was in the right.
You were innocent.
I was innocent, and the jury found it. Seriously.
Yeah.
And
so you got accused at school of having marijuana.
well, there was some marijuana found in my car,
Okay.
but it was in the back seat.
Sure.
And there were other people in the car with me, and
Okay.
and it was in somebody's glass case, and you know, I told them they couldn't search my car, and they told me that they didn't need a warrant, that they could search my car. Jury says, well, and I told the jury I'd smoked pot before. Back then we called it pot.
Yeah.
What do you call it when you have your people, they socially pressure you?
Peer pressure?
Yeah, I had peer pressure.
Sure.
from.
All the cool kids were doing it, right?
Well, no.
I thought you didn't care what people think.
Well,
That wasn't always the case.
Well, we had things change,
Okay.
and I was very much of a political, very much of a radical. I supported McGovern. Oh my gosh, help me! I'd walked away from my faith.
A lot of young kids do that. They might be raised in a conservative home, get around friends. They go through a phase where they're very liberal or progressive, and then as they get older, they kind of morph into something differently. I mean, I think that's seen a lot in our society.
Well, I think I gained. Here's something that if it doesn't make sense, everything has to make sense to me. Well, back then, getting high, whatever, it didn't make sense. But I mean, it was cool. It was.
When we say back then, what year are we talking? 60s?
Late 60s, late 60s,
So
early
what was
70s.
what was considered a liberal Democrat in those days would probably be a moderate Republican today.
No.
You don't think so?
No. At that time, we were.
We're not talking JFK Democrat.
No, we're talking radical. We're talking
Like hippie?
We're talking further from that. Students for Democratic Society, radicals.
Okay.
Let's destroy America the way it is.
Yeah, and people think this progressive agenda is new. It's been around
Yeah,
forever.
it's been around
forever.
forever.
It's just a new title, a new name. It's the same thing.
It's a new title, and but most of us, if you take a look, that came up. Everyone, or not everyone, but most, all became moderate to conservative Democrats. Some even became Republicans. Some from the SDS, Students for Democratic Society, which was the radical group, even ran as Republicans and whatever. So,
What do you think it was that changed you from being a far leaning left liberal to becoming today you would call yourself a centrist? I've heard you say that. You probably lean more conservative.
I still would like to call myself a conservative Democrat, which today does not exist because the progressives have said that they don't need us anymore.
Yeah.
So they kicked us off to another party, whether we like that party or not. When you have, for instance, when you have very good Democrat politicians that have done so much for this community over the years, and they're now despised by the new progressives and considered trash because they're not extreme. Now, that would be, to me, the same as if we had on the far right, if we had a group that was saying that are whatever. It's just divisive.
Right.
And I can't help it.
Well, in 2017, 2018 time, you were actually coming around to Donald Trump. I remember you posting a lot that, and I've seen you be critical of Trump and I've seen you praise Trump, but you were starting to kind of come around during those times.
I didn't like him. I never did like him.
I just recall, and I don't have him in front of me, I just recall a few posts where you were kind of praising some of the things he was doing. What were the things that Trump was doing that made you kind of think, okay, he's different than your average Republican?
Oh, he wasn't. He wasn't. In fact, he was worse than the average Republican.
I agree with you.
But what choice did we have? We had And again, now we're getting into politics. We had they were both. We in that 2016 election, they were both. Oh my gosh, it was flip a coin.
Yeah.
Except I could see the progressives had moved in and was taken over the other side, even though the other side was saying we are going to stay traditional Democrats. I could see as a Democrat that wasn't happening,
Hillary had changed quite a bit.
and I could see that the party was being grabbed, being destroyed, in my view.
Yeah.
So came 2020. The same thing. Trump, oh my gosh. Biden, he'd walk off a plane, he'd walk the wrong way, and he's waving at a farm field, and there's nobody in it, and they're going, So now when you watch him, he always has these people in front of him that he's supposed to almost touch and walk with him.
Yeah.
But I'll say this. I asked a congressman in Washington, who's running the country? And he said, Joe Biden is. And I said, doesn't he have a war room? I'm told that he has a war room. And I was told every president has got that war room. It's a room full of advisors, and they sit there all day long, and they're working on everything, on what you should do. And every president, well, now we find out that we had 3 balloons fly across the United States when Trump was president, but no one told them.
Right.
So,
Well, listen,
you know what I mean?
I've said this often. We're supposed to be the greatest country the world has ever seen, and yet the 2 options we had for the highest office in our country was Joe Biden and Donald Trump. Like, how is this the best 2 that we had to choose from? It was a no-win situation, in my opinion. Like, I felt, Trump would have been better than Biden, but neither was a good choice, in my opinion.
No, and neither were.
Neither of them can articulate a full sentence. And,
Both are egotistical.
Yeah.
And when but I will say this.
This is one thing I've noticed about at least the conservatives that I know. The conservatives that I know, and I'm not saying every conservative is the same, is we can criticize Donald Trump or any Republican leader that's not doing. But I've seen a lot of Democrats that I know will not criticize their leader. They stick together through thick and thin. They are with each other, and that's why I think they're winning everything, because they stay together. But
They do stay together.
okay. You also, people don't know this about you, but you were a former employee of the year for the Chamber of Commerce. What years did you work for the Chamber of Commerce?
I didn't.
Okay.
I was a business.
Okay.
And as they have today, they have every year, they have the Employer of the Year, the
Entrepreneur of the Year. Yeah.
and in whatever.
Blah, blah, blah.
Yes. So in the
Well, we won Entrepreneur of the Year, so 2021.
Oh, I won. I think it was 85. It's like
What business was that?
Manke Construction.
Okay.
We were the largest. I own the largest
Manco.
residential construction company in the county. We had 25 employees. I had a vice president, female, way back then. We were the first company.
Aggressive Tom.
Yes, we were the first in Owosso. We got to advertise this. We had computers.
Oh, wow.
Oh, yes. Only the banks and us. Oh, God.
So why'd you get out of construction
ego.
business?
Oh, my God. Why? I got burned out.
Yeah.
I just got burned out. When you have... I was running at that time. I was running 2 businesses. One was that, and I also owned a video production company. We were doing TV shows on local cable. I had that, and so I was doing a show like Bob Vila, if anybody remembers him.
This
now.
old house.
Yeah, This Old House. But ours was a joke. we only did 2 takes. And it was just, we'd watch what Bob did, and it was so fake that we just took it and we took it to the next level. Like, you'd see him, he'd kick a wall, and it would just fall down. Well, you could see before they'd cut it all ready for him. So, so then we would have somebody cut the wall, and then I'd walk in, and I'd say, okay, and I'd kick that wall, and it'd go down, and everybody's going.
Does this footage exist somewhere? I'd love to see it.
No. That was up on local cable. It was called Your Building Project, and
I got to see this.
I
Who's
don't
got
know.
the tapes?
I have some tapes, not very many, and it was broadcast cable over the cable for. I think we did that for about 6 months, and
Just had fun with it.
yeah, had fun with it.
Okay.
But I just got burned out.
Another thing I've heard you say a lot, I've even heard you say it on this, is that you don't like being fake and you don't like fake people. So how do you identify a fake person? How do you know when someone's just fake?
When they're trying to make sure that they don't offend me. When someone is looking at me in the eye and they're telling me one thing and I know they feel the opposite. I like it when someone looks at me and says, "You're a son of a," da-da-da.
Yeah.
I don't like you. And I instantly like them.
Yeah.
And I say, thank you for being honest and being real. And it's like, how can you like me? Well, because you're honest and real.
Yeah.
And then someone else that wants to pat you on the back, and you're going to get a knife, or that's. So no, I have a lot of respect for a lot of adversaries, a lot of respect. I hold them in high respect, as long as they are what they are all the time. Leonard Krawczyk is a mentor of mine. He started the Independent. He died. Leonard took that paper and it went woof.
Yeah.
And then he sold it. But Leonard it is what it is. And he had people dislike him. And I looked at that and it was like, Leonard, you are real. And so I'd see Leonard and it was like, Leonard, boy, you got hit on your story last week. And it was like, ha, I don't care.
Well, I'll say this, Tom. In the years I've known you, there have been times where we've disagreed.
Yeah.
There have been times when we've agreed. You've always told me what you think, even when you knew I probably wouldn't like it. You've always shown me respect. You've never attacked me personally or my family. And in my experience with you, you've always been true to who you are. Like it or not, hate him, love him, you're always true to who you are. You don't put on a different persona. I've seen you in different settings. I've seen you at church events. I've seen you at political events. I've seen you at city council. I've seen you here today. It's the same guy. It's not somebody that's got different personas and I think probably the reason that people have an issue with you or a hard time with you is because you don't see people today that are just themselves all the time. I think that another thing that social media has created is it's created this propensity for people to have this kind of alter ego, this different side of them that people will love. People, especially the younger generation, they're living their life for the likes, the shares, the comments, and they're realizing that if I am myself, people aren't going to like it, and so I'm going to be somebody else. And so, if anything, I would say you are an authentic person. I want
everybody to be authentic. I want people. I've said this, and I've got to say this before we wrap up. I just had a 33-year-old man come up to me and wanted to fight me because I have different political views than him. So he comes up and he wants to fight me. And I'm looking at him and I said, you know what? I said, I don't know you. I said, so you really don't mean anything to me? So get me out of your head. Why would you want me in your head? Get me out of your head. Why? And then he got even madder. Now he really wants to. But it's normally it's the progressives. They don't want to listen to any other side, and I'm not. So, what's the what are we told to do in our faith? We're told in our faith that we are to love people to the max. So I have somebody that doesn't like me, absolutely hates me, writes absolutely nasty things. So I did a nice story on her business and got her 15,000 reads. And I know she sat back and said, why did you do that? It was a beautiful story on, you got to go in and shop here. And it was like, because I wanted to show her that businesses have to stick together and we have to put our differences aside and just exist.
We got to stop being so sensitive. You know, I mean, I'm only 42 years old, but it's not so long ago that I remember.
God, you're older than me.
Yeah, I know.
It's 2023, and you know, I've said this before. This 2023, so I can be whatever I want, and I identify as a 28-year-old white heterosexual male that uses he and him for my pronouns. No, I don't care what anybody else is. You can be whatever you want to be. You can be a cat. I don't care. But so just be who you are and be real and don't let other people define who you are. You define who you are.
And here's the difference. You can be who you are, but that doesn't mean that everybody else has to go along with it. And if you're going to really be who you are, you got to be comfortable with other people maybe not being comfortable with who you are and be okay with it. Because if you are really who you are, then you don't need everyone else's approval. No. And so, well, I would say this. If you're listening and you got an issue with Tom, you don't like Tom, you think what he says is untrue, he doesn't care, but go talk to him. Ask him the toughest question. Ask him, come flat out with it. He's at least going to give you his opinion, his honest opinion. And, Tom, like I said, there were times at the Comstock where, I felt like you wrote something that was just 100% not factual. And I told you. And we always had conversation about it. And here we sit today. We're not sworn enemies at all. We get along every time we see each other. And I think that what would make a difference in anyone listening, that if you have an issue, go have a cup of coffee. Go sit down.
With anyone.
With anyone. Yeah, not just Tom, not just me. I know people listening have an issue with me. I'm being told more and more that people have issues with me. And, as my mother would say, how can anybody not like him? But I just say, if you have an issue with me, let's sit down and have a cup of coffee. Let's talk about it. And if I said something that offended you, and I truly said it, then I'll tell you, yeah, I think that way, or hey, I didn't mean it the way you took it, whatever the case might be. But I think that that's extremely important. So, in Tom's word, he is a man that he loves God, he loves people, loves reporting the news straight up, whether people are offended or not. His motto, to wake up every morning, have a fun-filled, action-packed adventure day, honoring his faith and being real. He wants everyone to know, this is again, Tom Manke, the person, God is real and he wants us to be real. That pretty much sum it up?
I think it sums it up 110%. And again, the only thing I can say is you don't have to believe what another person believes. You don't have to subscribe to what they believe. But we should at least listen. Mm-hmm. And just accept people where they're at for who they are. Mm-hmm. And that's so.
So, as a branding and messaging expert, can I give you one critique?
Please.
So, they interviewed Trump in 2020 right before the election. And, of course, they're trying to get him to grade himself. And, of course, everything is a 10, right? Everything is perfect. But they said if you could give yourself a negative on one thing, they're really trying to get him to just say one. He said, well, I probably would give us a poorer score on our messaging. Sometimes the way we message what we're trying to do isn't necessarily coming across as what we're actually doing. So I would say this: you told me that your end game, your goal is to build a platform so that you're able to promote people who aren't able to promote themselves, to give the small message. I think sometimes your messaging comes across, and it's your platform, so you do what you want. But from a messaging standpoint, sometimes what you're trying to say is not coming across the way that maybe it is how you want it, maybe it's not. But I think in my experience with you, your intentions are always pure and right. But I think sometimes the way you message it comes across in a way that is not maybe what you intended. Or knowing your definition of stirring the pot, bringing the bottom to the top in the middle, maybe it is how you're doing it. Maybe your messaging is spot on. But I think that sometimes people don't perceive you the way that you perceive yourself.
I perceive myself as just a conduit, just a person that's this is the way it is, and I'm going to lay it out. Now, the rest of you, come together now, and you guys discuss it. When you talked about how I grade myself,
Yeah.
here's another interesting thing about me. My class point where I was in my class,
Yes, your grade point average.
2.225.
That's a solid D minus.
No. It was.
Oh, that's a C minus.
It was a.
That's a C minus.
No,
yeah.
No, I was.
Nope.
I came out. It's a perfect center. I was
a
a
C.
center of the class.
I gotcha.
I had just as many below me, and just as many above me. So where I came at 222, and in my class, whatever. It was. I
Right
sat
down the
back
middle.
and I smiled and I says, "I'm the average person.
The average Joe.
I'm the average Joe. I'm not that person down at the bottom, and I'm not that person at the top. I'm just that person in the middle."
Interesting. Well, that's a great way to sum it up right there.
So I'm sorry I didn't get A's at Stanford.
Before I let you go, though, I do got to have you. We do this thing called Explain That Post. Do you have your phone with you? I'm going to send you two pictures. We go through someone's social media and we say, this needs a little more context. I know what this is, but I want you to explain this to our audience. They can see this picture.
Okay, good.
All right, it should be coming now here.
Oh, you mean the one with my face mask on?
Yeah, so you're riding. There's two of them there. Did you get both
Yes.
of them?
Yes.
It's the middle of winter,
Yes.
and you're driving a motorcycle.
I am.
This is what's the name of the bike? You have a name for it.
It's a Ural.
Okay, but you have a name for it. You call her
Nastasia.
Natasha. Nastasia?
Nastasia.
And why Nastasia?
Because she's Russian built,
She's Russian built.
but no longer anymore because of the war with Ukraine. First time since 1939, the American company that owns it, that was manufacturing it in Russia, has now moved it to another Ekistan country, and I can't tell you which Ekistan country it is. But
So you told me that this bike is built for the winter.
oh, it is.
So how cold is too cold to get on the bike?
The coldest I've been out on my bike is 0.8, 8 below zero.
And what do you wear to stay? I mean, how do you not just freeze? Just bundle up?
I bundle up and I say,
Just because I'm a man.
I say, thank you, Lord, for this opportunity that you are giving me right now to get out and enjoy life. And I'm going to go out and I'm going to have a fun-filled, action-packed adventure night riding my bike.
Yeah. So you ride it year round.
I ride year-round, and in fact, you find me more out. Raining, snowing. It's now, to be fair for anyone listening, it's a military bike, and it's got it was designed for military. They don't use as much anymore in military use because now they use all-terrain ATVs and such. And
It's like an Indiana Jones Captain
but
America
this
style
is,
bike.
This is the bike that you'd always see in the World War II movies.
Yeah.
Or
It's cool looking.
or the last military one that I seen, the ad, picture this.
Okay.
They're in Africa, and they're coming through the tall grass, and the bike comes up a knoll, and it comes up on top of this little knoll, and they see a tank coming. So instead of having a machine gun on the front like they used to, it has a rocket launcher on the back. So the guy gets off, and he gets off to the back, and he's lining up his anti-tank gun onto the tank. So, yeah, it's but I
No issue starting it up in the winter. Occasionally.
No, it's really weird. It's harder to start when it's warm out. 3 kicks. If it's above 20, 3 kicks. If it's below 20, 5 to 8 kicks.
Wow.
I
All
don't
right.
use electric start.
No electric start.
It has, but I don't use it because it doesn't work in the cold.
Yeah. Well, Tom, I appreciate you coming on the show.
Thank you.
Before
It's
I
a
let
pleasure.
before I let you go, we got this thing called Say It in 60, where I take 60 seconds. You get 10 rapid fire questions. This is how we squeeze the last ounce of wisdom out of our guests. So
Wisdom, I'm a .22. Or whatever.
Well, these are all your answers, so there's no right or wrong.
Should I be a redneck now, or what? How do I want to come across? Okay.
However you want. This is you.
Okay.
We're gonna
Okay.
ask. We ask the same 10 questions to every guest. So
right.
60 seconds. Are you ready? You got the timer? Timer starts now. What is a must-read book?
Must-read book. The Bible.
What is a daily habit everyone should do?
Pray.
What is your favorite podcast?
This show.
Well, I appreciate that. Michigan or Michigan State?
State.
What is your why? Why do you do what you do? That grin.
Because I've been created to enjoy life.
Okay. Apple or Android?
Android.
What is your favorite quote?
I'm going to have a fun-filled, action-packed adventure day.
Tom Manke. What is a must-binge TV series?
I don't watch TV.
Okay. How much time? 15 seconds to tell the audience, what is success to you?
Success to me is very simple. It is when you are you. When you are true to you, and it's here's something that's said in the NA and AA community. Always be true to yourself, and you do it for yourself. You don't do it for others. Thank you.
There it is. You have it there. You be you. Well, Tom, before you go, I want you to look at this camera and plug what you want to plug. Tell the audience how they can find you in Owosso Community News Group.
My plug is don't believe any one news source. You got to constantly check us all. Because all of us are getting our news from the wires. We're getting it from human beings who might get it wrong or intentionally give it to us wrong. So always filter it. If it doesn't make sense, that's the filter to use. If it doesn't make sense, something's not right. Something's not right.
All right. You heard it here.
But I still got to say, Friends Community News Group, we're going into our, 15th year this year, 14th or 15th year, and we're just under 50,000. We want to hit 60,000 by June. So please come on board, start reading. You don't have to like me. In fact, I'd rather you didn't, because then I don't have to I don't have to do things that you'd like. So just, be you and love people. And from my religious side, love God, He loves you.
All right. Well, listen, if you're there for the comments, if you're there to follow along, if you're there to get information, if you're there to be entertained, go check out Friends and Community News Group. Tom, thanks again for being on the show. I think this is our longest episode today, so if you're still watching, thanks for coming along on this journey with us. As my mother always said, you can't and never could until you tried. So go out there and try something great, my friends, and don't take the easy way out. We'll see you next time.